200 miles and done for the New Balance Rebel version 5, but just because I'm done with it, does it mean that it has run out of life, or has it still got more in it? Today we're going to be diving in this long-term shoe review. So it's been an interesting 200 miles for this thing. It's served me well, but to be honest with you, probably today, maybe a couple more runs I'll get in it, but overall, this is probably the last time I'll be lacing up this shoe. I'll be sharing my thoughts on how I found it over the last 200 miles, of course the wear and tear, how I've been using it, and then of course I'll continue to use it moving forwards, which I think you guys know the answer already, and then share a bit more detail as to why it didn't work for me, maybe why it won't work for you if you're considering picking it up, or why it might work for you. We'll get into all of that shortly. Quick reminder, this is a pair of shoes that I purchased with my own money. Nobody sent me this shoe, so without further ado, let's dive in to the wear and tear. So after 200 miles, the shoe's holding up pretty well, to be fair to it. No snags, no frays, no tears in the upper. If we just go down the side here, you'll see everything is still looking really nice. As per all of my shoes, they start to turn a slightly different shade of white. Although this was never white, it was a lot more bright and shiny than it is today, and that's just because of the trails being so dusty right now. This has been used on a multitude of tarmac and buffed out trails, nothing technical, but I just wanted to make that clear that it's had a decent even split of them. So you see, when we get into the wear and tear on the outsole and stuff like that, you can take that into consideration. I feel like if I just run solely on tarmac, you would probably see a different wear pattern on the outsole. As for the midsole, everything is visually looking really nice. You'll see there's a fair few crinkles in this bigger stack section, as you can see here, but in the forefoot it looks relatively decent. Again, that's only visual, that's not representation of how the midsole actually feels, and we'll get into that after the outsole. I'm really surprised at the outsole. The outsole has held up really nicely. There is some small areas of wear, but I am talking small. I will say durability on the rubber outsole has been fantastic. What I haven't been able to test this shoe in is wet conditions, so I cannot give you an update on the grip. I've probably run in 2 or 3 runs in wet weather and it's been fine, but it's not been a regular occurrence. We've had such a dry summer here in the UK that the most of the miles in this shoe have been all dry. Bit of wear at the top here, a little bit of wear across the bottom here, and you can see some of the exposed midsole in the back here is chewed up. The heel pads here are absolutely fine, and really that's about it. But the most important wear and tear is the performance of the midsole. Now, I often find a couple of areas of a shoe, I mean, it's not the upper. The upper can start to fall apart. You can start to see holes, snags, frays, tears, and it really doesn't affect the performance that much. It's usually the performance of the midsole and the performance of the grip on the outsole. I've had shoes in the past where the grip has gone after 100 miles and they just are terrible in wetter conditions. That can be really detrimental, but mainly it tends to be the performance of the midsole. And I will say the performance of this midsole started to die off relatively quickly. I mentioned it in my 100-mile review and I said I would do my best to get to 200, and we are here, but no more. I can confirm the fact that this midsole is just absolute mush. So in the first 50 miles or so, it had a tiny bit of responsiveness. First run in this shoe was actually a session, because it is marketed more in an up-tempo shoe, a daily trainer, but you can or should be able to pick up the pace in the shoe. There's no reason why you can't, but I didn't find in that session that it gave a lot back. There was a lot of squish, there was not a lot of responsiveness, there was not a lot of spring back from the shoe. What little spring back there was in that first 50 miles disappeared very quickly, and by the time it got to 100 miles, it was just mush. It reminded me a little bit of the Invincible, the original one. I never purchased that shoe, but Tim Gross very kindly bought a load of shoes to a race that we were both attending. I tried on his Invincible there, and it was just a horrible experience to run in. I know so many of you like that, so I apologise. I'm just not a huge fan of the softer, mushier shoes. I prefer something a little bit firmer, and I can confirm that nothing got better in this shoe. In fact, right now, I feel like I'm almost just squishing to the floor and really just getting nothing back at all. I will, however, say in previous experiences of midsoles going flat, I've usually found that they start to harden up a little bit, maybe feel a bit rubbery, they feel a little bit weird, and sometimes when you do land, it can kind of shake the fillings through your teeth. That's obviously going to be the opposite to a softer midsole, but sometimes with softer midsoles, I can find that they just almost feel like jelly underfoot. I wouldn't quite say that this one has gone that far, but I would say it is absolutely useless now. It feels like you're just running on a marshmallow. It just sink right to the floor. You can almost feel the ground, and you've just got to fully push off. You get nothing back from this at all, and I'm really disappointed with the lifespan of Fuel Cell. And I will say I'm disappointed because I haven't tested Fuel Cell out since the Rebel version 2, and that one my ankle just rolled in too much and I had to retire shortly after 100 miles due to ankle pain. And before that I had tested it in the Fuel Cell TC, which was one of my favourite shoes. The Fuel Cell combined with the plate, it was such a rogue shoe, rubbish at slow paces, but when you got going it was such an incredible shoe. So moving on to how I've been using this shoe since the last 100 mile update, well, exactly the same. So in my training recently, sometimes I'll have training blocks where there's a bit more steady running in it, and usually the daily trainer takes the part of the easy and the steady runs. Over the last 9 weeks or so where I've been doing double threshold work, there's been no steady runs at all. Everything has either been a session or easy, and nothing has changed since that block is finished as I move in to my marathon phase. So this thing has only had easy runs up to the volume of 90 minutes and down to the volume of maybe 30 to 45 minutes, anywhere within that range. But I definitely knew from early days, from that first session, this was not a shoe to pick up the pace in. I didn't even really ever want to try it in a moderate run. I did once within the first 100 miles, and again, I just was not impressed at all. So this has purely been an easy run shoe, and that is it. So will I continue running in this shoe? Well, I might get 1 or 2 more runs done in it here and there, but I do plan on stopping pretty much. I'm being completely honest with you, you've probably seen a lack of shoe reviews on the channel. It's just financially, I've been investing my money into gels because it's really important that I get my fueling right for my upcoming marathon. So I've lacked on buying shoes, and so I haven't actually had the options in my rotation to switch this thing out too much. It's at the moment this thing and the On Cloud Surfer 2, which again, if I'm honest with you, I probably prefer to this shoe. But that's going to change very soon. I'm going to invest in a new daily trainer and we'll test something else out. So until that one comes in, I'm probably going to have to stick with this thing for the moment and the On Cloud Surfer 2, but I certainly don't plan on taking it to any more milestones, and I am done with it. But just because I'm done with it doesn't mean that you guys could be done with it. And the honest answer is I think it's 50-50. I've run in shoes that have fallen off a cliff far faster than this thing. Although the midsole never really wowed me in the beginning, I thought it was going to be a great easy shoe. It just didn't last that long. Even the Nova Blast 5, which I was a bit gutted that that thing started to die around about 150-60 miles ish. This thing fell off a cliff much sooner. It hasn't ever got to a point where it's become uncomfortable to run in. And one thing that I've really been impressed with the Rebel is that I haven't ever had ankle pain in it, which I did in version 2. And I believe that's more so down to the wider platform of the shoe. So although this has absolutely zero stability elements in it, the upper is completely what I would class as neutral with no supportive sections in the medial side here, and the midsole has no harder sections in it or no structure at all. I feel like when you do land, if you are prone to just maybe collapsing in a little bit more due to the wider base, the squish just pushes the midsole out and stops you collapsing in so much. So I have found that to be a benefit, and it has meant that I've suffered absolutely zero issues with the shoe, which is a big tick. But the feeling and sensation now after 200 miles just means that I do not want to run in it. Now I do have a couple of other older shoes that I could dig out, and that honestly right now is more of an appealing feeling to me than to carry on trying to log some more miles than this. So that for me is the reason I'm going to retire it. I think for some of you guys out there, if you really want to get bang for your buck, it's definitely not down and out completely. I feel like you could squeeze maybe another 50 to 100 miles out of it, but my word of warning would just be when a shoe gets to a point where it feels like mush, that's when you just have to be a little bit careful. When you notice that performance degradation over time, you just got to keep an eye out for injury. So I would take it run by run at this point and just keep an eye on it. So I think overall over the past 200 miles, this shoe has been okay. I wouldn't say it was necessarily good. It's been enjoyable to a degree, but that didn't last very long. I've appreciated a couple of elements about it. As I mentioned before, the wide wider platform. But for me, I've got to be honest with you, this just reminded me that super soft shoes are just not my gig anymore. I do prefer the firmer midsoles, and I will say this thing has definitely transformed away from what the Rebel used to be and has definitely merged itself much more into an easy day shoe. I certainly wouldn't recommend it for picking up the pace. There are plenty of other options out there. I'd love to hear if you guys picked up the Rebel 4 or the 5, because I know they're relatively similar. I'd love to hear your thoughts, how many miles you've got in yours, and if you're experiencing similar performance degradation to me, and how many miles you've got in it, and whether you're continuing to plow miles into the shoe or if you have put a stop to it as well. Make sure you let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this one, guys, I'll leave a link up here to a little bit of shoe testing I did recently, where I pitted the Adios Pro 3, my potential marathon shoe, up against the Puma Farstar Nitro Elite 3, and went through the comparisons of those two shoes. And if you enjoyed that one, I'll make sure I leave a link to a video down here that you'll also enjoy, and hopefully I'll see you guys over on one of those.